The first church in the world came out of Africa. The first monastery in the world came out of Africa. The very intellectual development of the world came out of Alexandria, which is in Egypt, which is still in Africa. Well, everywhere they try to pull it out, and when they... It's true, it's true, it's true. It's just a reaction to racism, and when they can't pull it out, they try to whiten it up. But as the sisters say, anyone knowing the history of Egypt knows the further back you go into it, the blacker it becomes. Yes, of course, of course, of course. The very first country mentioned in the Bible, Genesis 2, verse 13, is Ethiopia. If one would look at Africa's role in the contribution of Christianity, there's no question here that Africa played a major role in stabilizing Christianity. When the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon his name, was chased by the feudal lords of Mecca for trying to preach monotheism where they were worshiping idols, he had to retreat. In retreating, he gave orders to his disciples. They went to Africa. It was Ethiopia that granted them refuge. Ethiopia had relations with the feudal lords, but refused to surrender them to the feudal lords who wanted to execute them. As a matter of fact, the Ethiopians themselves conducted them to join the Prophet in Medina, where once he rejoined them, they could rapidly spread Islam throughout the world. We have just, in passing, given you some of Africa's great contributions to world religions. This Egyptian Book of the Dead, incorrect title, one of the first sacred books in the world, monotheism, coming out of Africa for that part of the world. Judaism, Africa gave to the world. Christianity, she stabilized for the world. Islam, at a time of danger, she saved for the world. No universal religion came out of Europe. All of them entered Europe from the outside. Thus, since they entered Europe from the outside, the state structure had the possibility of using the religion against the people at all moves once they could not disperse of the religion. If one would look at the history of Europe, this certainly was the truth. Christianity carried on a great struggle against the state. When the state could no longer crush Christianity, it took it over. If one would look in every aspect of life, one would see this is Europe's relation to religion on the cultural field. Therefore, to speak about atheism in religion, in relation to religion and the control by the state in Europe is not difficult. Thus, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels can correctly state in the Communist Manifesto, and we quote, "Religion is the opium of the masses." This is correct for Europe. It is not correct for the rest of the world. It is certainly not correct for Africa. One can see even today in the culture of Africa this great struggle of revolution and religion marching hand in hand. The same Christianity which was used to oppress slavery was the same Christianity which Nat Turner used to cut off the slave master's head in the name of the Lord. The same Christianity which segregationists used to keep us in segregation was the same Christianity which Martin Luther King used to break down segregation. If one would just look just at Africa alone, but of course throughout the world, one would see this aspect of religion and revolution running hand in hand is necessary in these cultures. We are certain that the indigenous people, if they try to cut off their religion from their struggle in Hawaii, they will run around in circles. Therefore, when one talks of nationality, one will understand one's culture, because nationality asks you above all to think for yourself independently based on your actions. Capitalism will come to confuse our thinking. We say deform it. It will let you think that you think about something of which you know nothing about and actually think you're thinking. Of course, one cannot think about something unless one is involved in it. There is no question here. If you have not taken physics as a student, you cannot think about physics. Of course, not taking physics, you can think about physics. You can even think you think about like Einstein. But unless you've taken physics, you can't think about physics. If you have not got into water, you can never think about swimming. You can read every book there is to read on it, look at every film, but until you get into the water, you cannot think about swimming. In order to think about something, you must be involved in it. Ask all the people in Hawaii, what do they think about world peace, and would they like to see it advanced? I assure you, all of them will tell you what could be done to advance world peace. But if none of them are in an organization actually advancing world peace, they cannot think about world peace. They can only think they think about world peace. Thus, we must properly understand that thoughts come from action. And since you are committing action to get your national liberation, it is you and you alone who should be able to think clearly about this action so you can rectify it for future action. This aspect of a people who seek independence thinking for themselves is crucial. We said in the past there was great trouble because those who were already advanced in the struggle for advancing humanity, arriving even at socialist states, insisted that everyone think like them. Thus, in order for me to be a Marxist-Leninist, I must think like an atheist. I must come before the people of Africa and tell them, before you wage a fight, you must know there is no God. If you don't know there is no God, why, they will stone me. The social reality must be understood, and social reality is neither inferior nor inferior. It is only an evolutionary march of history. Some stages some miss, some stages some stay longer at. But to see them as somehow inferior from the thinking of others is to cause great confusion. This aspect, then, of thinking for oneself is necessary, because the real struggle in any revolutionary movement is the ideological struggle. The real struggle is the ideological struggle. No other struggle matters. No other struggle matters. Certainly, if the ideological struggle doesn't matter, when a revolutionary is imprisoned, they would surrender. What keeps the revolutionaries strong, even in prison, is that they remain faithful to their principles. We said in the very beginning that revolutionaries are principled people. A woman who's not a principled person can never be a revolutionary, but she who holds to principles faithfully, uncompromisingly, here you have revolutionary character. Therefore, this aspect of holding to principles firmly must be properly understood. It's this that we say causes everyone to understand that the struggle must be the struggle for values, not for advancement. Let us give some examples. In the United States of America in the 1960s, there were no African mayors to speak of. Today, in the United States of America, there are over 300 African mayors. And they are mayors of big cities, Washington, D.C., Newark, New Jersey, Atlanta, Georgia, etc., etc., etc. Of course, in the 1960s, there were no African mayors at all, none. These African mayors, these 303, being their thinking deformed, actually believed that they arrived at the position of mayorship based on their own individual struggle. Look at that. They do. They do. Everyone knows that they arrived here based on the struggles of the masses of their people. As a matter of fact, even just looking at America, anyone not knowing anything about that history must know that capitalism in that country is so racist that even for a reform movement, the Africans must spill their blood. As a matter of fact, Africans in America spill their blood for every advancement. There's no advancement they make without spilling their blood. If they want to ride on the bus just like everybody else, they have to spill their blood. If they want to sit in a filthy 5 and 10 cent store just like they pay like everybody else, they have to spill their blood. If they want to live in any community in America, even though they have the money, they have to spill their blood. Just to get the right to vote, which everybody gets, they have to spill their blood. To get their children into schools where they pay the taxes, they have to spill their blood. There's no advancement they have made in America without spilling their blood. And you know this is just for reform? Malcolm said revolution is bloody. It knows no compromise. It overturns and destroys everything in its path. Well, look, if these Africans are shedding blood for reform, they're already making revolution. All they got to do is change the objective since they're already shedding blood. Change the objective. They're already shedding blood. They shed blood to vote. Give me a break. Shed blood to destroy the system. Let's get it on. It's only logic, and logic will impose itself upon the people even unconsciously as they continue to struggle. Even unconsciously. We said that this aspect of holding on to principles is necessary. It is here that we will come to see precisely why we must speak of revolution. These mayors who do not question the values of American capitalism become mayors, and listen to this, since they do not question the values of American capitalism, accept these values, these African mayors who got their position off the blood of their people now become as corrupt as white mayors. Revolution is the only solution. Revolution is the only solution. Can one actually think that one sheds one blood to become and join the... No, let's not even think about it. Not only do they are powerless. Totally powerless. There's nothing they can do. Los Angeles is the best example. Here stands a man, Tom Bradley, who came out of the police force. Coming out of the most brutal police force in America. You must know it, he was a lieutenant. And he's so powerless that not only can he not stop his police force from being brutal against his own people, but even cannot redress justice when an unjust is heaped upon his own people. All he can do is say, they did us wrong, didn't they? Wow. Capitalism thinks it can fool everyone. It can fool the petty bourgeois scum of our race, but never the masses of the people. never the masters of the people, and they never will. After 1965, they did everything to fool them, even gave them Tom Bradley, but they walked over him. And capitalism is, they took out Tom Bradley and gave them the police chief. Well, if the mayor is, isn't that stupid? The mayor can't, what's the police chief going to do? Even everyone who's stupid knows that the mayor's got more power over the police than the police chief himself. The mayor's elected. They take off one African mayor out of Los Angeles and they give us a police chief. So we're supposed to think now that the police are going to be less brutal to our people, that the mayor couldn't do it, the police chief is going to. It's a brutal system, it's a brutal system. It must be fought without pity and without mercy because it oppresses the people without pity and without mercy. This aspect, we say, of independent thinking is crucial. Our talk is about sovereignty, but we say sovereignty has to do with the people holding firm to their culture. The people having integrity in their culture and fighting to maintain their culture. In the United States of America, we can see this everywhere. The Africans there, thinking that they have no culture at all, tries in every way possible to imitate the culture of the enemy. In every way. As a matter of fact, they do not measure progress unless progress is made within the culture of the enemy. A people who are fighting for independence, a people who have been colonized, must understand that the Cultural Revolution precedes all other revolutions. Thus, we advise all, as we do ourselves in our struggle, to come to know our culture, respect our culture. In respecting our culture, it calls for rigorous struggle against the enemy's interpretation of every aspect of life. Capitalism does not lie some of the time, it lies all of the time. When it tells the truth, it's a result of a double lie. No, it's a fact. Some people become crazy because they actually try to figure out when are they lying. They're lying all the time.